Hey there! So today we're diving into something really fascinating, how oils prevent rust in machinery. You know how frustrating it is when metal starts rusting, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just annoying, it can be seriously expensive when it happens in industrial equipment. But here's what's cool. Every single oil formulation has what we call an R&O package.
What's an R&O package?
It stands for rust and oxidation. Think of it like sunscreen for metal. It's the most basic protective layer that any good lubricating oil needs to have.
You know, I actually saw the effects of poor rust protection firsthand at a plant last month.
Oh, really? What happened?
They'd been using the wrong oil type in their steam turbine, and within just a few weeks, they started seeing rust formation on critical components.
Ouch, that must have been expensive to fix.
Yeah, it ended up costing them over $100,000 in repairs and downtime. But it really drives home why this stuff is so important.
Interesting. So why is this so crucial for machinery in general?
Well, imagine you're running something like a steam turbine or a paper mill equipment. There's usually water around, and where there's water, there's potential for rust. Once rust starts, it's like a domino effect. It weakens the metal, increases friction, and can eventually lead to complete equipment failure.
And I'm guessing most industrial facilities have some exposure to moisture?
Exactly. Even in seemingly dry environments, you'd be surprised how much moisture can accumulate from things like temperature changes and condensation.
So how do we test if an oil is actually good at preventing rust?
That's where something called the IP135 test comes in. It's basically like putting oil through its paces to see how well it protects against rust.
Can you walk us through how that works?
Sure, so they take this perfectly polished piece of steel, mix the oil with water, and see what happens. There are actually two versions of the test. One uses regular distilled water, and the other uses synthetic seawater for testing marine applications.
The seawater version sounds interesting. Is that mainly for offshore equipment?
Precisely. And here's the fascinating part. They rotate this steel piece in the mixture for hours at 60 degrees Celsius. If there's even one tiny spot of rust afterwards, it's a fail. No exceptions.
That seems pretty strict.
It has to be. When you're protecting millions of dollars worth of equipment, you can't take chances. The test might seem harsh, but real-world conditions can be even tougher.
Speaking of real-world conditions, what about temperature variations?
That's actually one limitation of the test. It's done at a constant 60 degrees Celsius, but in reality, equipment might operate at much higher temperatures.
Like in a steam turbine, right?
Exactly. You might have pressurized steam at 120 degrees Celsius or higher, which can really put those rust-preventing additives to the test.
Makes sense. But what if water does get into the system?
That's where you want three lines of defense. First, try to keep water out completely. If it gets in, you want the oil to shed it quickly. That's called demulsibility. And if all else fails, those rust-preventing additives need to kick in and save the day.
I've heard some facilities test their oil regularly. Is that recommended?
Absolutely. Regular oil analysis is crucial. It can tell you if your rust inhibitors are still effective or if they're starting to deplete.
And how often should they be testing?
It really depends on the application, but for critical equipment like turbines, monthly testing is pretty standard. Some even test weekly if they're in particularly challenging environments.
This is actually super relevant for anyone working with machinery. Where can people learn more about this stuff?
Oh, definitely check out learnoilanalysis.com. They've got tons of detailed articles about oil testing, rust prevention, and basically everything you need to know about keeping machinery running smoothly.
And it's probably cheaper than replacing a whole piece of equipment that's rusted through.